Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today, I'm going to depart from our normal, international tax planning, structuring, residencies, citizenships, etc. subjects to talk about something that is a little more general that might concern a lot of you, given how much we hire people abroad, etc. And that is I'm going to talk about if you have teams, what is the most underrated leadership quality? So before we go any further, I would love to hear from you what you think is the most underrated leadership quality. You can put it in the comments below. If you need to pause the video, go and do that. We're going to see what people say. I suspect we're going to get some gamut of different things. And just a quick note here. I'm saying underrated, so there's going to be some that they're extremely important leadership qualities, and kind of everybody acknowledges that. And so, that's one thing. And then on the other side, you're going to have some qualities that, hey, listen, people don't talk about, but they're not that big a deal. So I'm curious what you think is it's a high quality, a really important quality, but it's also not very spoken about, right? So those two. First of all, you may notice I'm wearing this Solutions Podcast t-shirt. So this is a YouTube channel that I created with a friend, and we're discussing cool issues, topics on how to improve the world and problems in the world, etc. So if you're at all interested in that, go over and check out that. Would appreciate it. For this channel, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We appreciate your subscriptions, trying to grow the channel. We try and put out great content for you every single day. And if you're interested at all, what we help people with here is figuring out how to build the best legal international structure, or go to relocate international living scenario, and then actually fulfill on that. So not just figure out the strategy, but also implement it. So forming companies, opening bank accounts, getting residency permits, getting citizenship, payment processing, hiring people, investing, etc. So if you're interested in that, you can book a call with me, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer. There's a link in the description below. Or you can check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. Well, let's go on. Okay, so this quality here, I think, is really, really interesting as being one that people just don't talk about. And I think it's really missing in modern society. I feel like this is something that we have a little bit of a loss of. There is a culture today of safetyism, which I think is really terrible. There is a culture of you wouldn't want to hurt people's feelings, or you wouldn't want to offend them, or heaven forbid that you would tell somebody how they should be, or that they're unacceptable, or blah, 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 right? That's kind of the culture that we're in. And it strikes me as there's a really great video on YouTube you can check out. It's a former Admiral, Navy SEAL guy who gives this talk. It's like, I don't know, a commencement address or something. And it's on, suggestions to change the world. And he's just talking about going through hardship and all of that's involved in creating meaningful success. And I think about the great civilizations in the past, right? You have Rome, you have Greece, you have, what made these places great was having great people with, going out and doing great things. And they had a high level of what it is that I'm going to discuss here. The other people that I really have seen this profoundly in are two of probably the greatest business leaders in history, which would be Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. And I'll give you examples from them of how they've brought this to the table. But to me, the most underrated leadership quality is having high standards. What I see a lot of today is people make excuses, right? When people fail to do something, what do? They have reasons, rationalizations, excuses, justifications, denial, and we let them get away with it. And this is bullshit. This is terrible. If you want to build a high performance organization, if you want the most out of people, that's not how you can do it. I remember once attending a talk, I didn't particularly like it, but it was with this guy, Anurag Gupta, who was involved in helping to make the company Lululemon, if you're familiar with it, successful. And I remember he was talking to one of the audience members, and the audience member was kind of complaining about how the employees were behaving. And he says, well, you're paying your employees to do bad work. And they're like, no, I'm not. And he's like, are they doing bad work? They're like, yeah. It's like, are you paying them? Yeah. It's like, great, you're paying them to do bad work. And when I look at many, many cases, the difference in the performance of a team, an organization, the things that get achieved is not the talent of the team, right? Again, I'm going to give you an example of this in just a second. It is the standards to which the leadership holds them to. And I just look at the disaster that is modern society in terms of, the rent seeking, the just wasted behavior, the degree to which corporate CEOs achieve nothing over decades, and nobody's going into the boardrooms and grabbing them and throwing them out on the street, but they should be. That's basically what should be taking place there. Because why are you paying that person $21.4 million a year if they're lagging the competitors and they're not getting, there's no meaningful progress in the company in terms of the valuation, in terms of the profits, in terms of the output, in terms of the innovation over a course of 20 years. This is ridiculous, right? But this is what happens, and that's really bad in my opinion. So I think if we want to be great leaders, we need to have high standards and we need to impose those standards on people. So here's two examples from Steve Jobs and from Elon Musk. So Steve Jobs, if you read his biography, great book by the way, there is a scene where he wants them to reduce the boot time on the iPhone, okay? I forget what it is. He's taking 23 seconds and he wants to get it down to, I don't know what it is. Let's just say 17 seconds, right? And the engineer's like, nope, not possible, can't be done. And Steve's like, really? You're telling me if someone's life depended on it, you could not reduce the boot time by 7 seconds? And the engineer's like, well, I mean, maybe if somebody's life depended on it. And Steve went to the whiteboard and he writes up the number of iPhones in the world multiplied by the average boot time, multiplied by the number of times per year on average that somebody will reboot the iPhone. And it turns out that the collective amount of time that is adds up to 100 people's lives over the course of a year, right? And the person reduced the boot time by, I think it was like 14 seconds or something, dramatically more than Steve asked for, right? Another example was Elon Musk. Again, you read the Elon Musk biography, there's a story about at SpaceX, some engineer came to him and said, hey, listen, I need $120,000 for this component. And Elon wrote back to them and says, that's ridiculous. This is no more complex than a garage door opener. You have $5,000. And the guy had to go back and completely redesign it and re-engineer it up from the ground up. And he got it done for $4,000 something. And he wrote this lengthy, multi-page email to Elon explaining how it was physically impossible to get the price lower than what he had done, and so not to claim back. And a few minutes later, Elon wrote back just the word, okay. But the thing that I think is really interesting about this is in both cases, you can see the engineers had the technical ability to achieve that objective, right? Because they did it. So the difference was not, hey, we didn't have talented enough engineers. The difference was you didn't have somebody who was sitting there saying, this is unacceptable. You need to raise the standard. You need to do something better. And in so much of society, I think this is a gross problem. In so many of our organizations, I think this is a gross problem. It's really easy to go and check in with somebody, right? Hey, you're supposed to hit this deadline. Hey, we want you to accomplish this. And they have an excuse, right? And the question is, at that point, do you accept the excuses? Is that acceptable or is it not? And there has to be some hard line drawn in the sand where you say, hey, listen, we're better than this. This is not acceptable. We're going to figure out a way to do it. And if you can't, next person will. So get out. And that might be cold, that might seem harsh or whatever, but I care about achieving big things in life and in the world, and I think that's just a really, really important thing. So I would love to hear what you think about this as an important leadership quality. I certainly don't hear people talking about it a lot, so maybe I'm missing out, but that's what I would say. And I think it's just hypercritical, but it's not politically correct to talk about that. I don't care about political correctness. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Again, tell me in the comments what you think. If you have other content you'd like to see, please let me know. I would love to hear it. Happy to create some content that fits what it is that you're interested in. And again, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, check out the Solutions Podcast, and I'm going to see you guys on the next video.